Hello, hello, Ederson Oliveira here. This is the fifth interview with the DNN Summit 2017 speakers, and today I have Mark Saunders and Frank Vigne with me. So let's start with Frank. Frank, how about you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your session.
Great. So my name is Frank Vigne, and I am most recently worked for Microsoft in a technology and civic engagement team, which is essentially, if you imagine kind of the traditional evangelism and technology evangelism, and you cross that with House of Cards, it's a bit like that. I did a lot of technology demos and presentations towards congressional staffers, foreign dignitaries that visited our office in DC, as well as one or two trips to the White House. So yeah, it's DC, it is what it is. So right now I'm kind of pondering what my next career move is. And you can always follow me on Twitter @tablettier. Once upon a time, I was a tablet PC MVP, and I blog very regularly on franksworld.com, and you can check out some of the videos I've made on franksworld.tv.
Perfect. Okay, how about your session? Can you tell us the title of your session and what's your session all about?
Sure. So the notion of civic tech is basically the idea that technologists can act as informed and engaged citizens. And these are typically segments of the population that don't interact, right? You kind of have the political set and you have the technologists. But more and more, as technology becomes more and more of a key part of our lives, you can think of the rise of smartphones. You're seeing the population kind of demand the ability to, Loudoun County, Virginia, now you can pay your property taxes on your smartphone. But these are things that people wouldn't necessarily have thought of. But now the technology isn't just a specialized skill anymore. It's as important as reading. So everybody has these supercomputers in our pockets. We happen to call them phones. And that really opens up a door of ways for people to engage with their community in ways that hadn't really been done before. Some of the earliest human writings that we have are actually tax records from the Sumerian Empire, right? So governments have been keeping records forever. And this is something I'm very passionate about. The idea, though, is that they were technically always available and these books were open, but you had to go to them. So what's particularly interesting is that with the advent of databases and the internet and technology, you can access government data from anywhere. And that opens up a whole can of worms that probably would warrant another session. But what I'm talking about is the idea of smart cities, right? We've heard of this term smart cities, but there's not really been a lot of traction around it. And smart cities are essentially the idea that you take the Internet of Things and you combine it with kind of public spaces, whether it's traffic lights, when's my snowplow going to come to my street? But a lot of it has to be driven, I think, from the ground up. You're seeing a lot of people in New York. There's a group that they have internet-connected thermostats, or actually temperature sensors. So they know if a particular landlord is not turning on the heat, right? They know that right away. Right now, the process to do that is, the tenant has to call it in and they file a complaint, and then they don't typically send an inspector unless they get several complaints. But now somebody can look at a dashboard by doing that. And temperature sensors are pretty cheap. A Raspberry Pi is somewhere between $35 and $40. An Arduino, if you want to go that route, is $15 to $25. A temperature sensor is another $5, $10. These are not expensive devices. And I think that's really opening up the cost of connectivity, whether it's 4G or 3G or even Wi-Fi. The cost of these devices are going down. The barrier of entry to write for an embedded system is really dropped. Particularly if you're a XAML and UWP developer, you want to write on Windows, it's really easy. I just think that we have the possibility here. And there's a number of sensors, right? Temperature is just one that comes to mind. But it really can open up the door for an engaged, technologically literate citizenry to make their community better.
Perfect.
And that's what my talk is about.
Perfect. We're going to get back to that. But Mark, your turn. Introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your session as well.
Hi, my name's Mark Saunders. I'm with 10 Pound Gorilla, and my session is going to be on analytics. We're going to take a little bit of a look at DNN and really not focus on DNN itself, but on Tag Manager, Google Analytics, and implementation of that. And really, a lot of people kind of miss the focus of what they should be looking at in analytics, and not only what they should be looking at, but implementation. My session ties pretty tightly into Cassidy's session about marketing, where you don't have to go to both of them to get something out of them. But last year we actually did them in tandem, back to back, to talk about, when you're remarketing, when you're trying to drive traffic, how to track it, how to get people to get to the site, but then how what they're actually doing. And there's a number of limitations to Google Analytics that can be overcome through some very simple steps, especially if you've ever tried to rewrite the Google Analytics tags. It's not easy. And Tag Manager has eliminated the need to do that. It's provided an immensely powerful tool that allows you to preview and test your changes to make sure that they're working before you implement them. So there's a staging methodology there. And we'll be looking at implementing that and really taking a lot from the audience, because this session really kind of molds itself around who ends up attending. And it's kind of level agnostic. It doesn't matter how technologically savvy or not savvy you are. We kind of start at the top. We'll spend a little bit of time on the high level stuff and a lot of time on when I say the high level stuff, looking down, how to do the implementation, and then get into some of the heavier stuff. But the heavier stuff, we really gloss over it, because most of the people that really need the heavy detail are going to be able to pick that up based on the information that we provide in the session. They're just going to be able to go back and look at it and see what they need to do. They don't usually need that. And we want it to be accessible to everybody.
I love when people throw me off, because I had here you under, okay, he will be talking about hacked. Now what?
Okay. Now, so there is a second session that I wasn't originally going to do, and we had an issue that we'll be talking about with the DNN Summit website, and it happens anywhere. It can happen to any site at any time. They managed to hack the White House, and they hacked DoD, and it happens all the time. So really, it happened to our site, and we've got some amazing people on the back end of that, but they found that they were stumped. And I'm not a real heavy programmer. In fact, Frank's mentioning the Internet of Things, and I have a box of stuff, and for the first time in my life, I just ordered a couple Arduinos, and I'm actually going to start playing that with my nephew, who expressed interest. So he as a youngster, is actually pulling me into it, which is really interesting. But the hacked session came out of them having a lot of trouble with the site and not being able to find what the hackers did. So really discussing, we're just going to have to spin this up again and set that aside, and we'll manually migrate everything over. And Cassidy had reached out to me and said, can you look at this? And I took a look, and interestingly enough, I was able to solve the problem in 5 or 10 minutes. And the reason for that is because it's just a different methodology, looking at it, from the top down or from the bottom up. And a lot of times, very, very analytical, very programmatical people start way too deep, and they're already in the rabbit hole before they can find the problem. And it's a simple thing that happens to a lot of people, especially under the stress of a hacked site. So really what we're going to talk about is we're going to pull on Ryan's and Mitch's experience and my experience and how our differences go. And we haven't really, as Ryan indicated, we haven't really discussed the final format, but I suspect it's going to be something along the lines of presenting what happened on the site, and then how we ultimately solved it, and then looking at how the deeper things that kind of led them astray, or the experience that they had that didn't point them right to the problem, and then of course how to avoid it. It's not a long enough session to really get into the real intricacies of security, but it is that, oh no, now what do we do? Because there's a message popping up on your site, or there's something there, and how in the world do you find it? It's a complex CMS with database potential and file potential for hack, and even server potential. So where did it come from? How are they getting there? And what, or for that matter, who do you call? There is no Ghostbusters for hacked. So we're hoping to help you find that solution.
Perfect. So here's the thing. I have spoken already with Ryan about the hacking session. So how about we, even though I'm not ready for that, I'm not prepared for that, but how about we focus on the Tag Manager and the Google. So the title is Google Tag Manager. Is that the title, more or less?
I don't remember what we titled it.
That's fine. So let's keep just on the topic, and again, at some point the title will be out there.
I usually where to go, where to be there, what to speak. I actually we went with went back and forth on a couple different titles because obviously you want people to attend your session, and in order to attend your session, you want a great title, right? So I don't remember what we settled on, so that concerns me that maybe we didn't settle on the right thing.
Perfect.
But yeah, it's going to basically focus on, first of all, how do I implement Tag Manager in DNN? It's immensely simple to get done. The implementation of Google Analytics originally was fairly insightful. It really focused more on analytics overall, potentially, than just Google Analytics. And I think some people miss that. And there's not a lot of documentation when you Google it. There has been some good videos done recently, but it's a simple thing to do. So we're going to start with that and show everyone how easy it is to implement Tag Manager, just to switch from Google Analytics as a standard implementation to Tag Manager. There is a file change that's required. And recently, interestingly enough, we did this session last year. And when I started to dig into the session for this year, I discovered that 3 weeks ago, Google changed the tag again. So Tag Manager's tag has actually been updated. So the old ones still work, but they've changed it to separate out the no script. I think they're still battling a little bit with the fact that a lot of people have scripts turned off. And of course, everybody's seen that the analytics numbers tend to vary greatly. And a lot of things kind of don't make sense. And a lot of that has to do with all of the different security features that browsers are putting in and plugins that are turning all scripts off on pages, depending on how the user is accessing your site. So we'll talk about some of the challenges there and understanding where you can get other information or perhaps even other solutions other than Google Analytics.
I'll have more questions on that, but let me get back to Frank here. Frank, so what's your link with DNN? I'm still trying to figure out where is the last link with DNN between you and DNN.
I don't have a link with DNN.
So how did you come about being in this event?
I saw the call for speakers and I thought, that sounds interesting. And we took a family vacation to Colorado a few years ago, and my son's been wanting to go back ever since. And I thought, that's a really cool place. If it's going to be cold here on the East Coast, might as well be cold in Denver and enjoy kind of a place where a city that embraces, in a state that embraces the snow.
Perfect. Okay, so let's get back to the session itself. You'll be talking about IoT, smart cities, but are you more? Is this a more technical session? Is this a more philosophical discussion? I mean, what does that entail? Is that technical, more philosophical, more policies?
It's going to be both philosophical and technical. So I'm going to start off with, here's kind of the world I've been living in the last 2 years, right? Where you have this notion of civic tech kind of rising. And it's not something that the mainstream kind of technology world is really aware of. It's kind of a niche within the technology and civic space. A lot of very passionate people, but they're always looking for more technologists to kind of help. And also, everywhere, no matter where you live somewhere, and you live in some kind of community. And whether that's, helping your local community by putting a traffic cam, pointing out your window and you happen to live near a busy intersection, or, going to teach, the local organization how to implement air quality sensors or noise sensors, or even, just, talking to policymakers in your, or politicians locally, about, hey, we have this technology problem and, I can help. And this happens a lot. I mean, Boston has been a real leader in this. If you go to mbt.ninja, it's actually a crowdsourced site that you can report delays on their local transit system, which apparently the official system was not very good at. So the idea that you can crowdsource that, and it was all thought up at a hackathon. It was no venture funding or whatever. And a lot of these problems, that technology problems that governments face at the federal level, they're not rocket science for us. I mean, it's just, getting a notification out about a train line going, being delayed. That's not rocket science, because all you have to do is just have people on a smartphone that says, I'm on the red line, it's delayed. And every major city has some kind of transit system, and every major transit system has people that dislike it, have their complaints about it. Why not, make a Yelp for, train lines or something like that. I mean, these are all the things that the big problems have kind of been solved in the technology sense, but where the exciting things that can happen, where you can impact people's lives is you know, kind of at that city level where you can, you know, do it in a way that the cities are just unable or just can't do for budget reasons or whatever. And that's really it. And and I'll also demonstrate some projects I've built. You know, whether it's my Wi-Fi scanner, right, which it really start off as a kind of a fun little project to build a Raspberry Pi based war driver. If you're all familiar with war driving is, I don't know if people do it anymore, but basically when Wi-Fi routers first came out, people would drive around and kind of see what networks were available and sometimes do nefarious things to figure out which networks were open. But this really got me thinking is that, you know, I could build a system to automate that and see, you know, how many networks are open, how many networks are available. You know, hopefully we're going to get this on a real production run in San Francisco. San Francisco is geographically unique. It's a very dense city and a very small geographic footprint. You know, how cool would it be to see, you know, how overloaded the Wi-Fi spectrum is in kind of the downtown area? I'm guessing that it is, but you can also come up with ways to determine, you know, more affluent areas are probably, we can say this kind of conjecture, are probably going to have more Wi-Fi's SIDs per square mile than less affluent areas. You know, now we can measure that. We can see, is that true? It probably is, but, you know, I don't have the data yet to confirm that. So you can present this to your mayor and say, hey, this part of town has 5 Wi-Fi SIDs, say, per square mile. You know, this part of town has 50, right? What can we do to make that better? And that also gives, you know, politicians are certainly self-serving. They want to be reelected. So, you know, it motivates them because then in 4 years they can say, look at me, you know, this part of town had 5, you know, Wi-Fi networks and per square mile. And then, you know, 4 years later, there's now 10. Reelect me because I've done all these great things for addressing the digital divide. So, I mean, you know, IoT is really a way to, I think, bring the disruptive power. I mean, look what's happened since, you know, phones became smartphones, right? How has that changed our economy? How has that changed the way we live our daily lives? What's going to happen if you can have sensors everywhere? So you know that there's the lights are out in this part of the town, right? Is there a correlation? And now we have data analytics. So now we can say there's a correlation between crime and lighting, right? And we can know, and we can even mine 311 data. In fact, some of my former colleagues in Chicago have done that. So you can figure out that, and these are all things that you can do in combined with the, you know, that's what's great about IoT. It's not just the things, it's the internet and the things, right? Because the things already exist. Now it's just a question of getting that data and analyzing it and trying to find something meaningful out of it. And I think there's an enormous opportunity here for entrepreneurs, for just people to make their local cities, you know, better.
Got it.
And
go ahead, sorry.
Oh, also, sorry.
No, please.
Cut you off. You know, in terms of security and the hacked conversation that you had with Mark, I mean, you know, we saw the IoT DDoS attack. You know, security is something that, you know, don't think that that's a fluke. I mean, that's unfortunately going to be the new normal. So, you know, we have to be very careful and considerate of security issues around IoT. And that's another thing, particularly if you're integrating into public kind of transit infrastructure and city systems.
Got it. Mark, do you have any points, any questions for Frank?
Well, one thing I'll mention is that the Queen City Users Group, which of course was the Southern Fried DNN guys, they've had a few of their presenters who have done IoT presentations and pulling that into DNN. So using DNN as an interface for IoT. So Frank, you may want to check that out, but at the same time, anybody who sees this, who's interested in IoT and maybe wants to brush up with it in relation to DNN, if they're in the DNN space before they come and then would attend Frank's session, perhaps it would be worth checking out the Southern Fried DNN site or the Queen City Users Group site. I'm not sure where those would be posted, but I know they're out there. And there were some really good discussions. In fact, one of them was, I think, almost 2 years ago, because I travel a lot. So I've been to a number of them, and I was able to attend one a couple of years ago on IoT. So we've been doing IoT for a long time. And of course, now things, like I said, I don't have the time to learn something new. And I've got a box full of Arduino stuff sitting right at my feet right now that I can't wait to get into. So it's definitely a current and interesting topic. And I hope I get to attend. I'm not sure what the session lineup is yet, but I do hope I get to attend.
Mark, I want to get back to you. So Google Tag Manager, of course I've heard of it. I've never used it. I don't know exactly its purpose. So for the ones like me that have heard of Google Tag Manager, but they don't know what is it used for, can you talk a little bit about that?
Ultimately, Google Tag Manager is it's a container that, and I don't want it's not a container in the sense of DNN, but a container in the sense of analytics. And it's designed to take your analytics off-site. One of the challenges for many, and especially if you get into larger corporations or maybe even a smaller company, is that you don't know how to put that code on a site. You don't know how to put, you've got code from, if you do any advertising, you have codes from the advertisers that you're paying to advertise with, because they want you to pay based on conversion. So they want their conversion tags on your pages. They want Google Analytics on the pages. They want perhaps something like Crazy Egg or some other click monitor that's looking at how this mouse is moving around on this site. So the idea behind Tag Manager is, and let's look at it from a corporate level, is you can go to your IT people, which it could take you a month or 2 months or 3 months to get something implemented, and say, I want this implemented. Give them the tag code. Once that tag code is properly implemented, you're all set from there, right? You can do everything from the Google Tag Manager interface, including pulling variables. The variables are very, very in-depth and powerful. So you can use JavaScript variables. You can actually scrape from the DOM, which means that you can actually look for, say, a class ID. If you have a class ID around a value that you need to capture that's unique, you can actually look for that class ID and pull the value out of that and store it in your analytics, or push it to one of the other analytics. So you create a set of variables. You can reuse those variables for any of the other tools that you plug in. So if you're using 5 different analytics packages and they all require different data, especially if they're integrated into Tag Manager, there's an interface for them. So rather than writing code and modifying JS, you actually will go in and have a field, put in what's the value of the sale, and it'll allow you to put the variable in that you're pulling from the sale completion page, for instance, if you're looking at trying to figure out what a sale is. So the idea is you put this on your site once and you manage all of your analytics from there. And the great thing is you can control it down to the nth degree, what page something fires on. So you may have multiple Google Analytics tags that you have on a page, and you control which one fires on which page based on the URL, based on the previous action, based on even a logged in user if you want to capture that and use it as one of your variables. So there's just an immense amount of things. It's a very, very powerful interface that kind of brings some of the complexities of analytics and implementation to the common man, so to speak, because I'm not a programmer. I can't stand JS. If it wasn't for our great team, I couldn't do it. What this does is it gives me the power to not waste their time. When I need some analytics data and I know I need to capture it, I might need to reach out to them if I need to create a JS variable in some custom app that we have. But once we have that, I don't need them anymore. I can get it, capture it, put it where I want it to be very, very easily. So really, it's about that implementation, that ease of implementation. And then it also brings the ability, it said, to actually test it. So there is a testing mechanism in place. So you don't have to change your code, wait 4 days and see if it works. You can actually change it. And within that session, you can browse your site and you can see exactly what Google is sending back and forth. You can see the actual data stream that's being sent back and forth, which tags are firing, which ones aren't. And I myself just had a situation where a tag wasn't firing, and it would have been very difficult for me to find that out had I just implemented normally on the page. I would have had to wait a couple days, see if we got any data. We didn't get any data, do it again. I was able to diagnose it in a few hours because I was able to see it was telling me that tag didn't fire. I didn't know why, and it didn't say specifically why because, there's a million different rules in place, but I was able to go through, step through, and find them and fix it.
Got it. Perfect. So again, I had no idea that's the purpose of Google Tag Manager. So what you're saying is that, and I guess that I go back to one of the first things that you mentioned there, a marketing department of a company can ask one time only for their IT personnel to put that code on their DNN website, and then all of the scripts that they may need to run, all of the analytics, like, and you mentioned a few, Crazy Egg, I'm sure that Hotjar would be another one. You can manage that from Google Tag Manager. Is that one of the ideas of this?
Yes,
Really?
even the more common things like Facebook remarketing tags, Twitter, Instagram remarketing tags, of course, the Google remarketing tags. Those things all have to be implemented, and they're often difficult to implement because they can step on each other's toes. They have to be put in exactly the right place on the page, and Google Tag Manager kind of takes that out of your hands. So it solves that problem for you. I haven't yet found a tag that doesn't work in Tag Manager because it also has an HTML source space where you can put scripts that are freeform. And I haven't dug into that much yet because we do use it for things like Facebook or Instagram remarketing pixels. But I'm not sure of any yet. I haven't found any, I guess, as I'm saying, that don't work.
Got
it. And I'm certainly open to, and that's part of the discussion. And the great thing about these sessions is you get enough people in a room, and you always get someone who's just happened to come in who has experience, who can go, hey, wait a minute, I know of this, and it didn't work. And that is what I love about doing these sessions, is that interaction that we get and the feedback that we get, which of course always provides some learning for us on that side too, because everybody doesn't have the same experiences. Certainly there are people who will say, well, we used it and we couldn't get it to work, or we had problems, or we found this didn't work, or that didn't work. And it's great to be able to crowdsource those solutions in those sessions. And that's one of the things that I love about being able to oversee those sessions. And in our sessions, you never know what can happen. So
perfect. Okay, Frank, going back to you. We are in the DNN ecosystem, the DNN community. What is the opportunity, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I might be doing that. So what is the opportunity or the possibilities that you see from a community that is built around a CMS, platform, a content management system? What is the opportunity that you see there with IoT and a content management system like DNN?
Well, I think the opportunity is visualization. We are going to, if we're already swimming in data, you'll think about it when cars start to become autonomous or have more active sensors on them. I read a statistic, I don't know if this is true, but something that one autonomous car could generate up to 4 gigs of data per day, right? So, and I also heard another statistic that there's some radio telescope array that's going online next month that is going to generate 4 petabytes a day. So, this isn't about autonomous cars or radio telescopes. This is about the coming data deluge that we are going to face. And the people that are going to, I'll use the flood analogy even more. The people who are going to hit the higher ground are going to be the people that can more rapidly digest, parse, and find insight in that data. And I think CMS systems like DNN, there's a real opportunity here for creating dashboards, visualization, and sharing that kind of information with people who are not necessarily data scientists, or just regular business decision makers who they don't care that they're now dealing with petabytes databases, right? That just I've talked to a lot of people who you say petabyte, their eyes gloss over. They don't even know what it is. So the opportunity to make sense of that data and present it in a way of a dashboard, I think is the opportunity for DNN or any CMS system, really.
Got it. Okay, so we're coming towards an end here. Mark, I want to, if you can, pick one thing that you would like your session attendees to leave that session knowing about Google Tag Manager. I mean, is there one aspect, one key element that you'd like people to leave your session knowing about?
It's easy.
It's easy. Okay, good.
A lot of people are very intimidated by dealing with their analytics, managing it, and it's easy. And this session is really, in the scheme of things, a potentially very low-level session that has unbelievably deep underpinnings that you can get into if you want to dig into the bowels of it. But the fact is, to get that initial implementation is easy, and from there, it's hard to screw up because it supports versioning. So you can change it, you can roll it back, you can pick something else, you could change your analytics during a promotion or during during, say, Cyber Monday, or, if you needed something custom that you were going to change the way you were going to monitor things for a brief period of time. Those things are all there, and you don't have to wait for your IT department to get it, or somebody who understands the code, because the code's already there.
Perfect. Same question to you, Frank. What is the one thing that you want people leaving your session knowing about the topic that you are talking about? What is the one thing?
I would say that they should know about civic tech as an industry or as a community, to know that they can use their technology, gifts, and skills to make their communities better, to help people in a very real and substantive way.
Perfect. Mark, anything else that we may have left, not mentioned here and that you'd like to add?
Well, one of the things, we've been talking a lot about the IoT, and it's really, really interesting, and I think it's very cutting edge today, and something that I want to point out to Frank, since he's maybe not a DNN space guy, is that one of the really unique things that DNN provides is an unbelievably extensible security layer. That means that you can provide data to different people based on logins extremely easily. It's built in, it's more robust than any other CMS out there that I'm aware of, and we've looked, certainly because people ask us what other solutions are there, and we've never found one. So the great thing is you can have different layers of community members or managers and tie into that IoT, and that's something that really, I think, as you become a member of this DNN community, because it's unavoidable once you attend one of our gatherings. They're really infectious, and you'll really end up making a lot of friends and wanting to come back next time around. I can assure you of that. So it's something that's worth looking into if you dig into DNN a little bit, is take a look at that security layer and how robust it is and how easy it really is to tie, whether it's pages of data or snippets of data, to a specific user role. And it really makes for a powerful interaction. And that's what's exciting to me about IoT, is that it's something that I'm not a real heavy programmer anymore. I'm a little bit older, and I've been doing that a long time, but I haven't had to program in a long time because our team is so good. So all I do is kind of architect and oversee and project manage, and really it comes down to those, I look down to this box of stuff, and being able to pull that into something where I kind of see this new life for myself, where now I can get into something that's interesting and I can learn again, because I don't have any interest in learning the stuff that we've got it covered and I've got great people for it. So why should I do it? And now here's something new. So I'm really excited for your session, and I'm looking forward to it.
Great.
Perfect. Frank, any last words? Anything else to close?
You can find me on franksworld.com or franksworld.tv, and follow me on Twitter at Tabletier.
Perfect. Okay,
And
so
I wanna,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I want to thank the DNN community for welcoming me, even though I'm not a DNN guy. And I definitely would look forward to learning more about analytics from Mark.
At the end of the day, Frank, when we cross what we do with, something external like IoT or some other types of technologies, when we cross, is really the moment that we expand our minds and our community as well, and our platform too, So again, it's a great intersection, I think, and people are more and more exploring that side of DNN and how it can be a hub of data as well, So that's it. Thank you very much, Mark. Frank, have a good one. See you guys in the next one. Bye.